relies on the fear of Americans, and in the recent wave of terrorist attacks all over the world, I think it resonates somewhat, rightly or not. It resonates in that sense. Who among the two candidates do you think has a much more comprehensive, a much more more promising anti-terrorism platform?
Well, I mean, Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine actually just released a policy book around 300 pages long. It's called something like Stronger Together. It's very detailed policy discussion of how they're going to deal with a whole range of issues: climate change, terrorism, issues like healthcare, among other things. And it's very detailed, actually. Donald Trump never provides policy details. He's really a classic bumper sticker candidate. In fact, if you use the classification that Isaac Berlin used, clearly Donald Trump is what you call a hedgehog. He has just one big idea, and he uses that to essentially always say, I'm the only person who has a solution to all problems. And his big theme is make America great again.
One big idea in a very simplistic
way, and of course,
which work with the voters.
And he says, you know what, I don't need to give the policy details, just trust me, look at my business empire and how I've been successful over time.
It's never been done in US politics.
And this guy is a reality show star, so he knows how to play into people's fantasies. He in fact wrote that in The Art of the Deal. Now, when it comes to Hillary Clinton, she's your classic fox. She knows a lot of things about a lot of issues. But the problem is that it seems in today's world of short attention span, in today's world of hyper-reality, when it comes to how people present themselves, when it comes to people looking for authenticity rather than experience and sometimes even credibility, it seems that actually Donald Trump may have the upper hand.
Which sounds familiar, right? Today. We're talking about President Duterte, who has pretty much risen to power on the same approach of this kind of raw, authentic, simple approach to solving the problems of the nation and foreign policy. Let's go to that now, because another big issue I think that we're following today is that statement, as cryptic as it sounds. What was it? I'm thinking of
crossing the Rubicon.
I'm crossing the Rubicon, or I'm about to cross the Rubicon. I forget the actual quote, but it was in reference to the figure of speech, of course, reference to Julius Caesar, crossing the Rubicon in relation to Philippine relations with the United States. What exactly is that?
Well, President Duterte...
Because it's just very confusing. I mean, on one hand, the U.S.-Philippine military exercises will continue. It's like this, touch and go kind of statements from him.
Yeah, I mean, clearly when it comes to President Duterte, he has a lot of apprehensions about the United States, and for legitimate reasons. I mean, let's be honest, the Philippines has been too subservient to the United States over the decades. Let's be honest, he's right when he says the U.S. never clarified the extent of their commitment to us under their mutual defense treaty, whether they will come to our assistance if there's a conflict in South China Sea. Let's be honest also, what the U.S. is giving us is pales in comparison to what countries like Jordan or Egypt or Pakistan have been getting. Billions of dollars in terms of foreign military financing, cutting-edge technology, not to mention Israel. So he's right to say that the United States should give more to us. And a part of me feels that he always dangles the option of China and Russia.
Do you think this is just a bargaining chip? I mean, is President Duterte just using these statements as a way of getting the attention of the United States to take him seriously and to take the Philippines seriously as a partner and not as a former colony? Is it just about that? Or is the President really entertaining the possibility of strategic alliance with Russia? I mean, it's just unthinkable at this point.
Well, the thing
China,
is,
perhaps, Japan, perhaps, the closeness, the Asian ties. But Russia, where does that come from?
Well, he always puts Russia and China together, kind of like an Eastern powers.
It's like Cold a throwback to the Cold War.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing with President Duterte is that he clarified that he's actually not talking about military alliance. He's just talking about buying some equipments from there, assuming the quality is good. And in fact, in fairness to the Russians, sometimes they actually give you good quality with a developing world price. So in fairness to him, and the other thing is that he clarified he actually wants more trade and investments from these countries, not necessarily military alliance.
But to use Russia, obviously, he's trying to just push some buttons in the U.S. State Department.
And he was beside Medvedev during the ASEAN summit, so perhaps they had to pick up some interesting discussion. Now, the thing with Duterte is this. he's not Hugo Chavez. This is the criticism, that he's going to be the next Hugo Chavez. He's going to take out the Philippines out of the U.S. strategic orbit. I think President Duterte realizes how important America is to the Philippine security establishment, to the AFP, to the DND, and much of the Philippine intelligentsia is also very pro-American. And the Philippines actually had the highest approval rating of U.S. last year in the world, 92%. So if President Duterte has a 91% approval rating, U.S. has a 92% approval rating. So I think he understands that he cannot go the Hugo Chavez way, even if he wanted. And I don't think that's what he wants. What's more possible with Mr. Duterte, I have been arguing, is that we may see what's happening between U.S. and Turkey. So under Mr. Erdogan, who's also very colorful, kind of a strongman
muscular approach to
whenever he has disagreements with the U.S. and Europe on issues of human rights and democracy,
he dangles something.
He always says, I'm going to meet Putin. And he literally goes and meets Putin. He literally goes and strikes military agreements and trade deals with
Turkey
China.
Is Turkey. It's
at the end of the day,
of the Middle East. It's a NATO ally.
And at the end of the day, military-to-military relations continue. And in fact, Erdogan has been carefully using this kind of a Russia-China card to push the Americans to giving concessions on military and political issues. It's very possible that Mr. Duterte will go along those way if the disagreements on issue of human rights and democracy continue. I don't think he's going to abrogate our mutual defense treaty with the U.S. or the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, but expect him to always dangle the Russia-China option whenever the U.S. and other countries pressure him on human rights issues.
The difference with Erdogan of Turkey, of course, is that Erdogan has a country behind him on this issue, pretty much. Does Duterte have the Philippines behind him? There's, of course, a nationalist breeze flowing through the country right now. But pretty much the Filipino elite, the foreign policy elite, the military elite, are still very much pro-U.S. Do you think he has leverage? Can he actually say that and be taken seriously when he says, I'm going to Russia and China? Can he just do that alone? Because he'll have to do it with the consensus from basically the establishment.
My thing is this. I foresee the possibility of us having some sort of limited military agreements with Russia in terms of buying some advanced equipments from them. And it's actually nothing different
from
the past.
The way other ASEAN countries do it.
Everyone has been doing that. And the Russians are actually on a roll here in Southeast Asia. They've been selling armaments around the region. Their economy is in recession. They have to sell stuff. With respect to China, to be honest, my argument is he has around 1 year to get something out of China. So he's going to visit China around October 1920 next month, and we can expect some deliverables to be discussed, like a mutual, some sort of non-aggression pact here in the West Philippine Sea. Perhaps he will really cancel joint patrols with the United States as some sort of confidence-building measure, because the Chinese are sensitive about that. Maybe he'll slow down in terms of giving American more access to Subic and Clark and Oyster Bay. It's possible we may even discuss a joint fisheries agreement. But I think if the Chinese really don't give him anything, if they take President Duterte for a ride,
which is possible,
which is highly possible.
If they see right through him and think that he's just using China to get concessions from the U.S., I mean, that could be counterproductive.
And the argument I'm beginning to hear in China is that this guy is too volatile, we cannot make a deal with him. So they're trying to use it as an excuse not to give him any concession. I think if within 1 year President Duterte doesn't get any deal, and the Filipino people are very anti-China while pro-American, it's very much possible that he will go back to the previous strategy. But the only good thing there is that at least he tried. He made a temporary tactical shift and he experimented. So let's see. I think it's time for some experimentation.
All right, just to close this conversation, who among the two presidential candidates in the U.S. do you see having a much more harmonious relationship with the Philippines, and President Duterte in particular?
Well, given how...
You think it would be Donald Trump because of his isolationist approach and his kind of like similar kind of machismo and persona?
Yes, strongman.
But is that necessarily so?
I'm sure the world will pay trillions to see a selfie between those two leaders, Duterte and Trump, in the White House. I think everyone looks forward to it. But to be honest, I think the problem is that you have two persons with kind of mercurial temperament. It's never a good mix. It's never a good mix. And the thing is that even if Trump could go for a much more new isolationist policy, he may take any expertise by Duterte much more personally than President Obama has taken it. And that's not a recipe for good relations, right?
His voter base would not take that.
Exactly. He has this macho base who will not tolerate any kind of insult from some sort of small developing country. Let's be very honest about that. That's a nativist nationalistic about him. And he wants America to be great again. So I think he'll be much more sensitive. And remember, Donald Trump is a guy who you can taunt on Twitter. Just say something insulting to him and he's going to come back at you. So I don't see that going away if he becomes the president. Now, with respect to Hillary Clinton, I expect some tensions on issues like human rights and democracy.
That's predictable.
That's predictable. But I think she's pragmatist and realist enough to make sure that that the relationship
and familiar with the region.
Yes, and extremely familiar with the region. And remember, the last time she was here, she called South China Sea the West Philippine Sea. She knows how to play to the audience here in Asia. She's extremely familiar with Asia. So even if in theory, Hillary Clinton seems to have a much more divergent personality or persona as opposed to Trump when it comes to Duterte, I think her policy experience, her familiarity with Asia means that she'll be better able to handle tensions with the Philippines under the Duterte administration.
Right.
Because relations with the U.S. are entering a new normal, and you need a much more experienced and credible leader in the U.S. to deal with that.
Right. First things first, either one of them will have to be elected by the American voters, and of course,